Hello once again, this is Hasenbraten for PokerStrategy.com with a session review video on No Limit $10 full ring on the Party Poker networks. As you can see, obviously I am not playing with Poker Tracker and Poker Ace because on No Limit 10 I think most of you do not have those assisting programs, so it would be unfair to use it because I would be using information that you don't have. So I decided to play without here, and I am not absolutely sure, but I think I did actually not play absolutely correctly after starting hands chart, though I will be explaining you the differences between my play and the starting hands chart and the reasoning for it if I get the fact that I actually played something differently. But for a start, ace-5 offsuit of course is a hand we don't play here out of position against the raise, so this is a standard fold. I'm folding here in my private play as well as the starting hands chart tells me, just because the playability out of position is way too bad to call, and 6-8 suited upper right. I'm not playing out of position against the raise as well. King-9 off out of the small blind is not even a complete for me. Close, I think you could complete, but you certainly do not have to because your playability is not the best one, neither is your hand, so I think you can complete, but you really don't have to. Against more opponents I would be more inclined to complete, but against just one limper and the big blind both being just short stacks or semi-short stacks, I think just folding is fine. And queen-4 off, of course, is nothing to play with as well, not even for a blind steal. Of course you can like differ from the starting hands chart, but that certainly does not mean that you should play a hand like queen-4 offsuit from the button against the blinds, because you think, well, I can blind steal. You heard something about blind steal and then are going to steal like any two. This makes no sense. Even if you're aggressive, you might steal from the button first in, maybe with a range like 35, maybe short-handed. So let's get this. We of course raise every pair, and we raise broadways. We raise suited aces usually, suited connectors. You could raise offsuit connectors as well. Wouldn't be too bad. Could raise the one gappers. Ace-9 offsuit I think is fine too. Suited of course too. If you want, you can raise a few more suited kings and some suited one gappers as well. So you get like to 35% more or less. But if you take like the loosest range containing queen-4 offsuit, here it is here. Here, 53%. So it's like 1.5 times the range. I would be raising it. I consider the range just given as quite loosish for full ring. 35 attempt to steal from the button, or maybe even more, is certainly on the looser side for full ring. Of course, you can raise slightly looser, but not much, and certainly not over 50%. In my opinion. For example, ace-5 offsuit lower left is a possible raising hand. I'm actually not sure if I raised it here, but it wouldn't be too bad because the button is a short stack and basically will fold literally every time I raise here. He's just playing a real tight range. If he's playing by a short stack strategy from Poker Strategy, he's just playing a real tight range against my raise here. So my raise is more or less a raise from the button, and raising ace-5 offsuit from the button is usually okay. So I might have raised it. Well, then I decided against it. I already typed in the raise and then decided, well, don't do it, just because it's quite loose to raise ace-5 offsuit without any information about my opponents from the cutoff. So as you see, you can as well just give it up. Differs from the people. If all of them fold a whole lot pre-flop, and you very often get the blinds, it would be profitable. If everybody, if maybe two of the players are really tight and one of them is really loose, but very predictable post flop, which means that he's very often folding to your continuation bet, never bluffing you, not even bluffing after he check calls a continuation bet and then turn goes check check, so you can take your ace high to showdown if good. Against such a guy you could raise. If you have some loosish maniacish guy who very often like check raises your continuation bet, maybe 3-bets your pre-flop, whatever, I think just folding is fine, because you don't get you don't get to showdown if good, and you very often just will have to fold, because ace-5 offsuit is a hand that does not stand action very good. So I think this is perfectly fine. King queen offsuit, upper right out of middle position. Even against the limper, it's possibly being raised. You don't have to. Well, here is something in the starting hands chart. King queen offsuit is listed with Jack 10 offsuit. I wouldn't really think about playing Jack 10 offsuit in this position after a limper. But King Queen offsuit, of course, is completely different. It's way stronger than Jack 10. It has a lot of showdown value by itself, and the pairs are quite strongish compared to the pairs you can make with Jack 10. So my top pair hands are that much stronger, and the possibility that the limper is dominating me is quite low, because he has to have queens, kings, and aces, or ace, king, ace, queen, which is quite unlikely because he will very often raise it for himself. This altogether makes the hand a raise for me, even though I think I would even be folding king jack. So king queen is the only hand out of this whole not suited broadways I would be raising in this spot, but I obviously am, and I think it's a good raise, and just taking it down pre-flop is okay as well. And another king queen out of middle position. Now it's getting closer. You can raise, I think, one limper. If there's another limper, I would be folding, because it would be too much of a multi-way pot. 3 people behind me can destroy the position. So against 2 limpers it's close. Against 1 limper I also think it's close, because we are just in MP2 now, in MP plus 1. But I think it's still possible, and well, though I did raise, not taking it down pre-flop now, getting a call by short stack. Okay. Well, this is an interesting flop, and I remember the hand actually. So if he checks, if he's like lead betting or something, I think I'm very often going broke. The question is, what do we do if he checks to us? I think I'm not folding this hand for a little bit more than pot size, because I have second pair with top kicker, and I still have a gut shot. So against most top pair kind of hands, I still have some outs. And even if he has some of them dominated with hand like ace jack, ace queen would be terrible in this spot, pocket jacks maybe, I still have my gut shot. So I still have equity then. And I think after him cold calling out of position, I think he's bad, and he can very often just have an ace or something cold calling here out of position. The question is, shall we do our continuation bet, or shall we check behind? Because I think after betting this flop, he has not much. He does not have enough left to think of a check raise bluff. So I think he's literally never bluff check raising us. But after a bet, our equity is high enough against his possible check raising range to call. So we will have to call then every time, or he folds a hand. And the question is, how many outs does he have on a board like this if he does not have us beat? And besides the flush draw, which is kind of unlikely, because 2 of 5 Broadway diamonds already are on the board, the question is, how many outs does he have then? And this is why I decided to check behind here and get another interesting card on the turn, because now now a flush draw is still has outs against me, but is still kind of unlikely because now the top 4 broadways lie. If he does not have a straight, he usually at least has one pair. I don't expect a short stack to cold call with just suited connectors here. Maybe a small pocket pair. And here actually we can just go for a bet call here on the turn because we have top 2 pair. Not top, but we have 2 pair against somebody who is just having more or less pot size bet left. I'm not folding here on the turn, but again I think a check behind is possible and even slightly better than a bet. Because now, if he did not think about it on the turn, he might possibly think about it on the river to bluff me. So I think I decided to check it back if he checks. If he bets, of course, I'm calling. If he's literally going all in, I'm putting the rest in. But after he checks, I think we can still check behind and just call a river bet, or maybe bet a good, or well, we can call a river bet if he checks again. I think we have to bet, even if you don't spike a full house. And well, with the full house, of course, it's an easy value bet. I think he even called, but I'm not sure if I looked up what he had. Would be quite interesting. No, looks like I did not. Well, so this hand quite a lot different from the standard. But given hand stack size of my opponent and the development of the board, I think it was an okay way to play. Of course, you can just go for a bad call on the flop or for a bad call on the turn as well. Yeah. And upper left, I'm just check folding my nothing against and completing short stack. King deuce off. Got all crap now. Well, I think the problem with standard lines is that very often you do not have the correct enough or the correct information in the standard lines given to decide whether or not a standard line is good. Because, for example, the starting hands chart, or the starting hands chart, especially the starting hands chart, does not have a tab that has to deal with stack sizes. So it never has been said if a short stack limps, if a middle stack limps, if a big stack limps, or something like this. And this is very often important information to deal with that can make a decision that very often is correct wrong, or make a decision that is very often wrong correct. Anyways, King 9 suited here against a short stack limper. For example, against a big stack from the button, I would very often be raising here with the King 9 suited. But against a short stack, I think it's quite badish because I think our hand usually is more or less like coin flip against his range. And you do have position, which is good, but the playability out of position, the playability of my hand against him is quite badish because he is quite committed to the pot. So the question is, do we ever get better hands to fold post flop? And I don't really think so. So you can just fold as well. First in, I would usually be raising King 9 suited. Well, and you never know lower left what your what your blinds are going to do. Maybe they have a real hand and going for a 3-bet or something. King Queen suited against cutoff steering raise. Yeah, it's a short stack. You don't know him. You don't know his range. So I think fold is best. Well, I don't think so. I'm absolutely certain the best play is to fold, even though your hand is quite strongish, and against the lucid range, it might be okay to try to get it in. But against the range of a normal short stack stealing raise, I think King Queen suited should be folded. But as a matter of fact, you're behind like every ace high. You don't know what the big blind is going to do. And those facts given, I think just folding is best. If you know he's like really loose, you can just like 3-bet, but you usually do not have those informations on the lower limits because you don't have played enough hands with a particular with a special opponent in particular to justify such a play with the king queen suited. Lower right, pocket nines. Starting hands chart would say just call, but once again we have the hand that is on the very top of a given class, and I think pocket nines here are a clear raise, especially against the big stack, because our hand is just usually way stronger than his. Against the big stack, we are way more often able to take our hand to showdown if we don't hit like much. Yeah, so I think raising is okay because we can take our pocket nines to showdown very often if we're good, even if we don't hit. And if we hit, of course, we can play like for stacks. Sometimes we take it down pre-flop as well, which is good too. We made a profit of 2.5 big blinds, which I think, I'm not sure, but I think it might be more or less the average profit of a hand like pocket nines. So it's totally fine. Ace 8 suited from the cutoff is also raised. I think it's even listed in the starting hands chart, so I don't really have to explain this. Hand is just strong enough, and we take it down way too often pre-flop and pre-flop or post-flop to make anything but raising better. And Ace 6 off, I think I will just dump then. With the suited ace, you could think of a raise here, in my opinion. Well, not really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is basically a shorthanded table. Against the blind post, I would be raising looser from first in position on a shorthanded table, but I would certainly not raise an ace 6 offsuit. I actually got positions wrong. I thought we were middle position, so we were MP3 and not MP2. Would have been okay then, I think, but still not necessary. Not with ace 6 offsuit. With a hand like ace 6 suited, maybe you can increase your raising range. You usually have from the cutoff, you can expand it to middle position, to the last middle position if you have like dead money or something. But ace 6 off is way too bad to be raised then. Upper right table gets short. I'm quite sure I exchanged it now or after a few more hands. And well, king 10 suited, of course, is a first in raise from the small blind and just getting the big blind. Yep, now I exchanged the table. You might have seen that now it's arranged differently. I just paused the video, got a new one and restarted. Well, I think I can go and try to see a few more bigger pots and more interesting hands, because right now I think we have seen enough of the standard play. Until now, wow, I exchanged once more. So let's get back and explain the hand. Exchange the table upper left actually. So here we have somebody raising from UTG who has a $7 stack left. He raises 40, so for a profitable set value call, he has to have $8 left. He has 7. We have him covered. I think calling here is still okay since he's coming from UTG and we have a position. For example, if this was like a button or a cutoff against your small blind situation, I think folding wouldn't be too bad. But since we have pocket nines, which depends on his raising range from UTG, but sometimes can make a difference, not in this spot, but in other spots, pocket nines are of course stronger than pocket deuces. In this spot, basically, pocket nines are the same hand like pocket deuces, because he very rarely he's raising a hand like pocket eights, something that we really have him beat. So we're just playing for set value against the whole range. And pocket deuces, of course, beat a hand like ace king if it does not improve on the same boards as pocket nines do. Anyways, calling here I think against the UTG raise in position is okay. Would even be better if behind us we had more big stacks that could cold call as well and maybe create a multi-way pot with our cold call in the first part. But in the vacuum, if you take those 4 people out, I think calling against him in position and him raising UTG is okay. And well, this board is quite badish. There's just ace king left from his UTG raising range. I think we beat. We might get to fold jacks and tens, but I don't think it's worse at all continuing here. So I certainly decide to just fold it. That's like the reason. That's like set value play. If you play for set value, you play with a set, and you usually don't play without. With no overcards on the board, I would be tempted to call like once or raise depending on the board. But with the overcard being in his possible UTG raising range, because I think usually people do not raise many hands but ace king and ace queen from UTG. Maybe somebody's raising king queen, but that as well has a speed, so I don't really think it's necessary to continue there. Let's just see if the pocket eights upper right get interesting, and if not, continue to the next hand. Well, first in now from MP2. I'm raising here. Why am I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once again, it's like the rest of the table is a short-handed table. Pocket eights, I think you can raise here. Pocket deuces, I would be more inclined to just limp and see whether or not somebody's raising and how the hand does proceed. But I think pocket eights, with more or less the same explanation of pocket nines, it's way stronger pocket pair. You very often can take it to showdown if you're good without a set. So the playability is way better. I decide to raise here and not to just call. And well, everybody folded, so I think I'm moving on now. Here we have another hand, 10-5 suited in the small blind. Usually no hand we invest money with voluntarily, but a 150 big blind stack, min raising first in from the small blind, I think calling is okay. We have position, so we don't really risk playing a real big pot if we're beat, unless like we flop maybe 2 pair and our opponent has a better 2 pair, something like this. But unless it's a real cooler, I don't think we're like getting married to a pair of tens or a pair of fives. We are suited, we have position, and he appears to be bad because he's just min raising, so I think a call is fine. And this is of course a decent flop. Against an unknown opponent, I will just raise. I think if he's continuation betting. If he's not continuation betting, we are of course betting by ourselves. And if he is continuation betting, I'm just raising him here. I think his preflop minimum raise is way more often weak than strong. And here of course we just have a monster draw with tons of equity against all sorts of hands. So, well, what was the board exactly? 5, 6, 9 of hearts and 5 of diamonds. 6, 9 of hearts and 5 of diamonds. Well, against a hand like pocket aces, we have 47% equity. Against some, I don't know, top pair, top kicker kind of hand, we are even a favorite. Against the top 2 pair, we have 48% equity. So you see it's basically okay. The only hands that really have us crushed are sets, where we just have 30% equity, and the straight, where we just have 37% equity. But you see, we usually have a flip, or we are slightly behind, and the cases in which we are slightly behind, usually, of course, he's not folding, but those cases are way more are made up by the times he's folding to our raise. Or maybe just calling with a better hand and then sticking his money in on a turn or river when he's dead. So after a call preflop on a flop like this, you certainly should raise. If you don't have a strong read on your opponent that he's maybe only minimum raising real strong hands and then getting married to them. Because if he now flips over aces, I don't really want to go all in. I think also with a few cents of that money in there, we could profitably go broke. But if he's bad, calling is more profitable because he very often will invest a lot of money when he's like drawing dead or really drawing sin against two pair trips or flush by our hand. But without any read in the vacuum, I'm just raising here. He folds, which is of course an okay result. And let's proceed. Now we have Queen Jack suited twice. We have one limper here in UTG, and it's fold to us in the cutoff. I think it's not necessary to raise a hand like Queen Jack suited here, but you certainly can for isolation. The playability is quite good in position with a high suited connector. He certainly has us dominated from time to time, but not too often, I think. And due to the fact that we very often take it down if nobody hits, neither he or we, I think isolation raising him here is okay, so I do. And well, he limp calls. Go call. Note. And we flop quite an interesting hand. We have an open-ended straight draw with middle pair on the flush draw board. It is possible to check it. Well, if he's betting, what would you do? What would we do if he bets? Well, if he bets, I think very often I would just call the flop and the turn and give up on the river if not improved. But due to the fact that he does not bet, the question is, what do we do if he checks? And I think it's a possible flop for checking behind, because we do have a draw here. We can improve to an even better hand, even though we already have a made hand. And this is the first thing. So we could check behind here, and it's quite rare that he has a hand he is like check calling here that we have beat. I think he's very often just check folding, or maybe check raising with a real hit. He does not very often have a hand he's check calling here, I think. So we could check behind for like bluff induce, but since we don't know anything about this opponent, I think betting is better. So we just bet and see what happens if he check raises, to what amount. You still have to know that our hand here is really strong, even though we might be drawing really thin against like a possible ace jack. It's in his range, but against this, literally every other hand, we still have a good equity. But anyways, well, him folding is the better result though, and we have a Queen Jack suited in spades once again. Which will be played as well, as I already told you. Everybody folds, and first in out of MP3, I think it's okay to raise from well, starting hands chart says it's a fold, I think, but it's obviously close. From MP3 to cutoff you should raise MP3. You can raise as well first in. And let's see what happens here. After a little thought, we get heads up to the flop, and once again flop okay. Against his stack, we are usually not folding here, at least not on the flop. And the question once again is what to do. First thing is, of course, it's like standard. He checks, we bet, then we go ahead. If he check raises, I think I would very often just call. Depending on his raising size, either stick the rest of the money in, or just call and call every turn, because since he just has $4.90 pot left, I think top pair good kicker is a strong enough hand to go broke with. But he does not. He just check calls, and we get an overcard on the turn, so every king has a speed, and we turn a draw. And basically now it's a situation, since he has slightly less than 1.5 pot size bet left. I think checking behind is better than betting due to the fact that I don't think he's too often calling me with the worst hand. On the flop, he can easily be calling with the 10 or with the worst queen. I think the 10 very often, and also the queen sometimes, is folding here on the turn. And we certainly do not want to get a tricky check call, check raise line by a better hand. So here, after we have showdown value, but not decent showdown value since we just have second pair, and we have outs, and our opponent is quite unlikely to call us with a worse hand here on the turn, I think checking behind for bluff induction and pot control is better than betting. And with the plan of just calling a moderate river bet, and on this turn card folding to a big one, because two reasonable hands that check call the flop now have a speed, which are Jack 9 for the straight and King Jack for the straight draw, which just improved to a better straight draw. Sometimes he even has a hand like Ace Jack or Ace King. And we can be quite glad to get good odds because we can easily call here and see to get psyched out by the Ace King, which is of course completely misplayed. I don't have to say that, but well, I think we took the perfect line against him. And let's just see what the rest of the video brings. Unfortunately, I did not find that many interesting hands, just two, but I think they are okay. First of them, King Queen suited against the blind poster. As you can see, he checked, so he posted the blind and did not actually limp. And go ahead. And the small blind, who is completing as well. The question is what to do. Starting hands chart would say just check. But in this case, against a blind poster who can have literally any two, and I think he is even lean more towards weaker hands than stronger ones, because stronger ones he would raise by himself. He did not invest the money voluntarily. I think he usually has a real bad hand, as well as a small blind usually has a real wide range completing here. I think raising King Queen suited here is very good, because the blind poster will very often just have to fold. He's not limp calling as often as a normal limper is. And the small blind, even if he is completing and then calling, King Queen suited is of course is a good hand to have then, because against his complete calling range, I think we are way ahead, and we very rarely are dominated by him having a hand like Ace Queen, Ace King, something like this. So in this case, you can certainly raise. Once again, it's a question to put 6 or 7 big blinds in, and I think it's okay any way you do it. And in this case, we just take it down pre-flop, which obviously is a good result. I just want to add that it's not necessary to raise in this spot once again, but it's possible. So showed you this one, and one last hand we still have Ace King offsuited here in the cutoff. Plan is to raise if there's no raise, and to re-raise if there's one raise, and possibly to fold if we get faced by 2 raises in front of us. And well, there's the first raise from UTG. There's a cold call by a big stack, and this is a good spot. It's called a squeeze because you squeeze both of them. You squeeze him because if you re-raise here, of course we re-raise. Well, let's first of all declare the amount. I think raising to more or less four times of his raise is okay in this spot if he's raising a normal amount. So 140 or something would be okay. 125 is, no, 120 would be, no, 140. So 125 is slightly less than 4 times his raise. I think it's okay. Now just the explanation why this is called a squeeze. It's called a squeeze because he is squeezed between the cold caller and our raise. So if he does his action, he does not know what the limper is doing, or what the original cold caller is doing. And he is squeezed because he just cold called a raise, is out of position, and is faced with another raise. Since he usually has a bad hand because he just called the first raise, his hand did not improve so far. So he is squeezed between 2 raises. He is faced with, and very often will have to fold. So we do this squeeze play and see what happens. In this hand, the original raiser instantly folds and the cold caller thinks about it, says, here's 3-bet, I fold, and then calls. And we of course don't improve at all. But given the fact that he just called the first raise, just called the second raise, and made this strange speech, makes me think that he has a real bad hand. And even if he's calling here preflop with a bad hand, if he's betting here, of course, I'm out. But if he checks, I think we can still continuation bet, just due to the fact that I expect him to be really weak here, and even though the pot already is really big and we are investing a lot of money to win it here with just ace king high, I think it's profitable because out of position he will often enough have to fold. So it's not a nice spot to make a continuation bet, but it's a necessary one. It doesn't make that much fun for you. Maybe it isn't that much fun for you maybe to put in $2 here, 20 big blinds just as a bluff, but it's a profitable one. You have way more fold equity than you need here to bet profitably, and he instantly folds. So I might be right in this spot. Anyways, I told you this is the last hand of the video, which of course indicates that we have finished right now. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope I had enough spots for you to learn something and you had a good time watching this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for playing on pokerstrategy.com. Have fun at the tables. Goodbye.